Brought to you by Penguin.
Bigger Than Us, The Power of Finding Meaning in a Messy World. Written and read by me, Fearne Cotton. Introduction. Writing this book has changed my life. I've gulped down knowledge with an unrivaled thirst and made willing changes to my life in the name of finding a deeper connection and hopefully to write a book that will be meaningful to you. Yet I had no idea of the impact it would have. I had no clue that so much would change in such a short space of time. I'm confident it will have a similar effect on you. All I'm asking is that you have an open mind and then just sit back and enjoy learning from a host of wise minds I'm going to introduce you to. I'm at a pivotal point in my life where I feel a lurking fog that crept in like a November morning in my early 30s, lifting. This book has marked the start of a process of shedding I didn't even know I needed. Old layers of life peeling away, falling off in great swathes to reveal new perspectives and a much welcomed lightness. Are you up for it? Do you want to dig deeper with me? Let me put some lexical oomph behind this life pivot and explain what we're about to do. By now, we all have a rough idea of how to look after our bodies and minds. We know that eating a balanced diet, doing a bit of exercise, and remembering that cigarettes look cool in films but suck for our lungs will help our bodies out. We know that having decent relationships with others, doing things we love, and refraining from binging social media will give us a healthier mind. But what about the other bit? The, what do you want to call it bit? The soul? Spirit? Awareness? Energy? I don't mind what you call it, as I'm not sure what name to pin on it myself, but I know it's there. I personally believe, sod it, I want to be pretty definite about this. I know that I am not just a body and a mind. There is some other inexplicable part of me which I think gets forgotten about far too regularly. The part of me that feels a deep, instant connection with certain strangers I've met over the years. The part of me that is pure intuition and knows the answer even though I'm tempted to Google the question. The part of me that felt and saw a celestial rainbow of colours during childbirth. The part of me that has felt pure bliss when tripping out looking at the sky. The part of me that could burst into a million tiny pieces when hearing a song that just gets me. How am I looking after that part of me? We'll get to that later as we'll romp through this complex, deep, and hopefully nurturing journey together. As well as nurturing that part of ourselves that gets massively overshadowed by our bodies and minds, I want to explore the concept of everything else outside of us too. Again, call it what you like. God, a higher power, the universe, and how we connect and perhaps even communicate with it. Not to complicate matters too much early on, but this exterior energy, or higher power, is recognised by many spiritual leaders as something that is within us, not outside of us as we may believe. But again, we'll get to all of that later down the line. Reconnecting with life. I believe that we need to look at this part of ourselves and find new ways to expand our thinking now more than ever before. En masse, we've never been in more trouble, and we know it. We can't always pinpoint why, but the jittery feeling of discontentment is never far away. There probably hasn't been a time in history where we have been so stressed, anxious, depressed, confused, and at times disheartened. We are more technologically advanced than ever before, can video call someone on the other side of the planet, order shoes that arrive on the same day, send satellites into space to help us navigate our route to work, and have modern medicine to help us in physical crises. Yet we're usually dissatisfied and feel we are lacking. We have more than any other generation, yet that feeling of lacking is growing by the minute. I think all of these uncomfortable feelings are rooted in our total subliminal disconnect. It's something I've talked to my dear friend Sarah Wilson, activist, writer, and all-round amazing egg, about at length. We are all in disconnect. We know we are abusing our planet. We know we aren't always genuinely connecting with other humans heart to heart. We know we are driven more by fear and less by love, and are floundering around wondering why we feel so off-centre. We cannot fix this feeling with a new workout, by changing our diets, or with mindfulness alone. Something much bigger, more expansive and more powerful is needed. Connection. Connection isn't calling up our mate once a week to check in, lovely as that is. True connection is remembering we are all one. Not just as individual humans, which we seemingly forget on a daily basis with our road rage, divisive attitudes and war, but also with nature. There is no separation or distinction. That might not ring true to you immediately, but it is something I'm going to explore in this book as we work out how to nurture our souls and get back to total connection. The Hugeness of Life. The title of this book, Bigger Than Us, is supposed to be relieving, an en masse collective phew that maybe there is something larger at play. This is not to diminish the human experience, my life or yours. It's simply a way of thinking that allows us to take the heat out of the small annoyances and problems in life so we can remember how huge all of this is. If we remember that we are on a ball, spinning in space, and the only ball we know of with life on it, with our own sun and moon and other planets beautifully dancing with synchronicity and precision nearby, all held in place due to energy that we can't see, then maybe it won't matter so much that we messed up at work or said something stupid we regret. Looking at energy allows us to get out of our heads and marvel at the magic that is constantly happening all around us. Life is bloody huge. My head is already bursting with thoughts and questions, but hey, that's the mind just trying to steal the limelight again. More magic. I would have been petrified to write a book like this 5 years ago. I would have trepidatiously typed while second-guessing what every cynical person out there might say. I've always felt inferior to cynical people. I've labelled them cool, edgy, perhaps even more intellectual. But honestly, at this point in my life, I am so over that. I love exploring spirituality and what else lies within us and outside of us. The magic, the connection, the inexplicable. I love it. I'm an out-and-out spiritual junkie, and there is no stopping me. So in short, if you are extremely cynical about this sort of thing, that is cool. Welcome along. My job with this book is not to convince you otherwise. It's to hopefully give you some other options and tools that might help you find more meaning, magic, and purpose in life. We often think purpose comes from having power or opportunity, but that's not the sort of purpose I'm talking about. I'm talking about purpose and meaning from within. An inner knowing that propels you towards a deeper experience of life. This book is about getting under the itchy clothes of life, getting beneath the thoughts, rumination, and constant noise of the modern world. It's connecting the dots and making sense of the nonsensical. This process throughout the book is not going to be wishy-washy or surface. This book isn't exclusively about burning incense and partaking in gong baths while wearing smocks, although they may feature if there is reason to. It's about getting curious and cultivating the willingness to see life in its full-coloured, bold, ever-changing beauty. I heard a term coined recently that made sense of the commodification of spirituality in recent years. Spirituality light, nodding to the vast interest in spiritual rituals without the deeper exploration or openness underpinning them. For example, and please remember, I am not judging anyone here as I'm on this learning curve with you all. Many out there may partake in yoga, waiting for a six-pack to emerge, without experiencing the deep connection from the breathwork and mental stillness of the practice. Many will burn sage in their homes, hoping that negative energy will magically disappear from their lives, without any willingness to look at why they might be attracting negative energy into their lives in the first place. For us to go on this journey together, you will not need to purchase a rose quartz toilet seat or go anywhere near a wind chime. You need nothing more than an open mind and a little curiosity. The speed of life. I'm also deeply fascinated with finding out if it's entirely possible to live a daily spiritual life in the velocity of the modern world. I know that minutes after coming out of a meditative state, I can shoot to pure rage that my next day delivery hasn't turned up. The irony. 1 minute purely in the moment, the next using time as a weapon against myself. If I'm honest, my spiritual awareness is mostly only rearing its head in those moments I actively carve out time for it. But what about the messy bits of modern life? A bulging inbox, kids screaming and demanding to watch YouTube even when you've said no, a traffic jam and you're half an hour late for work, a friend accusing you of neglect. How can we tap into spirituality in those moments? I'm at a juncture in life where I know that following a spiritual path makes me feel good, and now it's time to really commit to it. Spirituality is often seen as an add-on, the extra bit on the side. But more recently, I've started to see that it is life. It's not the side dish to the main course of life. It's the whole meal, starter, main, and dessert. The rest is merely seasoning. I want more peace, a deeper connection, a trust in life, faith instead of worry, more meaningful moments, acceptance in the messy bits, even meaning in the messy bits. I know the only way for me to do this is to take an even deeper dive into theories, methodologies, and practices that have been around way, way longer than the internet and modern science. Making the ordinary extraordinary. This isn't a new way of thinking to me, thanks to dear Lynn Cotton. The mothership and I have talked about spirituality more than any other subject over my lifetime. Mum is on a constant mission for meaning, and mostly magic. She often wants the magical answer or explanation to help soothe worry and fear, rather than a statistic or something purely practical. I've watched her zoom in on orbs in photographs to find minuscule hidden images that may inspire or guide her. She has found many blurry outlines of her late dog Wilf trapped in floating orbs caught on camera in a snapshot moment. Which may sound very out of the box to you, but again, if these moments bring peace and connection to the individual, why question it or judge? She always actively encouraged me to look outside of everyday thinking, to find the extraordinary, and I'm eternally grateful for that. At a young age, Mum inadvertently introduced me to meditation, even though I had no clue what it was. She had a cassette. For anyone under the age of 25 reading this, you can indeed have sympathy for my generation having to rely on cassettes and their often tangled tape, which she would often pop on for both of us to listen to. We would lie on the 80s dusty pink floral sofa and zone out while listening to an audio experience that to this day is still crystal clear in my mind. The narrator, using hushed tones, would usher you through a wooden door set on a long mosaic-tiled corridor, and there you would find yourself in a house with many rooms. Each room we were guided into held a different colour from the last. The first room was red, with many red objects within it, which you could pick up and examine. The next was yellow in hue and contained many sunshine-coloured objects of interest. I adored letting my mind wander through this imaginary house and eventually onto a shoreline on a beach umbrellaed with stars. I can so vividly remember the images my imagination threw up in those childhood moments, perhaps more vividly than real-life occurrences that I experienced. What I didn't realise was that this imagined house was emulating the chakras and their colours and purpose. As an 8-year-old, I merely found it a relaxing and super fun experience, but really it was a beautiful, gentle introduction to how we can relax our minds into a meditative state. This experience also subliminally taught me to look outside of the box, to reach for the seemingly impossible, to seek the magic, and to make the ordinary extraordinary. Pinner days. I grew up in a suburban town on the outskirts of London, in a mock Tudor semi-detached house with a hard-working mum who held down 4 different jobs and a dad who honed his craft as a signwriter for his whole working life, bar a brief stint as a milkman before I was born. Nothing out of the ordinary there. A classic 1980s/90s suburban childhood, full of school packed lunches, chats on house phones, and the odd camping holiday thrown into the mix. Yet Mum was always up for the extraordinary, often desperately seeking it out. On Pinner High Street, above a small shop that sold crystals and wind chimes, there was a therapy room. I just had to call my mum to reacquaint myself with the name of this shop, as the decades have made the memory fade to sepia tones, and she tells me, with absolute clarity, the shop was called Dreamcatcher, which is no surprise to any of us. You could get many treatments, from Reiki to energy healing and past life regression, all while, below the treatment room window, the good people of Pinner bought their weekly shop in the giant Tesco over the road. My first experience of Pinner's very own spiritual portal was around the age of 16. Mum had been before and said I might have fun booking in for a past life regression session. After making my way past an Everest-sized pile of crystals in Dreamcatcher's shop entrance, I ducked under the stalactites of wind chimes hanging from every inch of the ceiling to make my way upstairs to the treatment room. A middle-aged lady with coiled tangerine hair asked me to lie down and close my eyes. I can't recall exactly what happened next, but I imagine that while I had my eyes closed, she waved her hands around, over and above my body, never touching me but giving off that buzz of energy that is so often experienced with Reiki. Now, hold on to your hats as I tell you the part you'll either be fascinated by or laugh your head off at. The first past life she recalled for me was from a period in the early 1900s where I had a twin brother who was my partner in crime as a trapeze artist. We would swing together in synchronized beauty high above a cheering crowd. On one occasion, I lost my grip and my dear twin's hand slipped through my fingers like a wet bar of soap, and he fell to his death. Tragic, I know. And maybe far-fetched, but I loved the process nonetheless. And even if I came away not 100% wedded to the story itself, it massively piqued my interest in past life regression. It could also be tenuously linked to my omnipresent need to make sure everyone in my life is okay and safe at all times. Who knows? I more recently spoke to the incredible Rhonda Byrne, author of The Secret, and she talked passionately about how we never die, as our energy, insert here, spirit, soul, or whatever you're comfortable with, can never die. You don't have to believe in reincarnation to be on board with this one, as none of us truly know where our energy goes once the physical part of us dies. Could it embody another physical form, or just weave into our complex universe in inexplicable ways? Mum, gosh, this is such a Lynn-heavy section, she's going to love it, also used to open my eyes to alternative possibilities on our evening walks. Eager to break the mundanity of suburban routine, instead of settling for Coronation Street after our Linda McCartney sausages, we would stomp around the mean blocks of Ruislip at dusk. These chats would veer off into the deep expanses of life's unimaginable possibilities as Mum reached for the stars above the mock Tudor maze. On one occasion, Mum stopped in her tracks and looked around. I mimicked her stance and looked for what had caught Mum's eye. "Do you feel it?" she whispered. I stopped and looked into the distance with a little more focus, and I did. I did feel a shift in something. This is where things get a little weird again, but you know me, I love weird. The air seemed thicker. Time seemed to have stopped. We both marvelled at this secluded moment, just me, Mum, and this strange shift in energy we were both feeling and possibly even seeing. Everything looked a little more hazy than normal, a little purple even. Team Cynical will of course say there must have been a nearby bonfire or a heavy mist en route, but it didn't feel like that. Team Cynical, I love you just as much as those who are nodding their heads right now having experienced something similar. We can of course continue to look exclusively for the scientific explanation to everything, but maybe there is a little room for intrigue, magic, and the totally weird that is left unexplained too. We felt something inexplicable on our nightly walk that summer's evening, an invisible movement, and an all-encompassing shift of sorts. The delicious juxtaposition of the extraordinary in the setting of the totally ordinary. Something bigger. My unusual experiences as a kid and teen are not limited to these two isolated moments. These often inexplicable or deeply connecting moments are woven through my life like a silver thread, reminding me of the beauty, strangeness, and hugeness of life. I'm yet to make sense of all of these moments, so hope to learn as much as I can during this process. Maybe you'll have had similar experiences that I'll be able to help you make sense of too. Or maybe all of this is new to you, in which case, how bloody exciting! I am buzzed for you and what you're about to read and hopefully experience too. Do not fret, this book is not going to be exclusively my trippy experiences from the Pinner High Street days. Spirituality, of course, goes way beyond a few freaky experiences and a local crystal shop. We have so much to cover and so much to learn. I am the most eager student, notepad in hand, eyes wide, ready to go. I feel very lucky to have insights and teachings from a plethora of experienced, wise, and incredibly smart individuals from varying backgrounds with differing expertise who can guide us through theories and practices to help us connect with life, ourselves, and others. They will share their knowledge and impart advice on how we can look after our energy, stroke soul, stroke spirit, which will subsequently help us remember that we are connected to everyone and everything. I hope this book will also act as a reminder that spirituality is for everyone, no matter where you're from, what you've got going on, or what you currently believe or don't believe. Even though I've been borderline obsessed by this stuff for most of my life, I still have so much to learn and so much to unpick. I have a caftan full of questions and my excitement is of seismic proportions, so shall we crack on? Are you ready to see past the human body and mind so we can have a poke around in the other bit? Are you ready to experience something bigger than us?
Thank you for listening. To continue the book, head to the link in the description below. And click here to subscribe to the Penguin YouTube channel for more audiobook samples and videos with your favourite authors. See you next time.